Okay, so I've been testing a lot of decks for this DC Cup event, and I would say this is the deck that I saw the most success with, and the one that eventually got me to D level max. This is a Salamangreat HEATSOul Code Talker control thing. Now, first off, I have to mention I don't think this is like the best way necessarily to play Salad or anything. This is more of a meta call, if you will, because of all the Runicks and Despias and I guess Swordsoul is still quite common. All those top 3 meta decks flying around. This version compared to the the pure Salamangreat version focuses more on making stuff like Baguska and Silent Conflict, which are 2 auto win cards against this meta, and why they're primarily the reason why I had so much success with this deck. So I mean, you know what Baguska does, right? If your opponent doesn't play Link monsters, they can't play the game, a la N-Pen. And Silent Conflict, most people know that this is an Omni Negate that banishes, but then there's extra text in this card that says banish that card, and if you do, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects with the same original name until the end of the next turn. So against Runicks, if you activate this on their fountain, it's an FTK. Their entire engine is stopped. They can't do anything for the next 2 turns, and you're gonna kill them. Even if they have, like, say, what's that card called? If they have a Runick Destruction, they basically have to hope to hit, like, because you do run other back row, you run like Cosmics and Called By and Infirm, so their one way out of Silent Conflict is to hopefully blind hit a Runick Destruction on your Silent Conflict. And even then, you banish their destruction, so that's 1 less card that they can shovel back with Fountain. And if you combine with any other card that can stop Fountain, which is Ash, you know, Cosmics, you can stop their Hugin from searching the Fountain. Like, they need 2 outs, specific outs to your board, and they need to hit like a die roll in order to even have a chance to win the game when going second. So this deck has had a 100% win rate against Runicks. Like, I'm actually like kind of surprised at that, because Runick is also the most face deck I've played this event. And like, besides just Silent Conflict, this deck has natural outs to a Floodgate-like playstyle. You know, Foxy is a card. If they have they flip a Floodgate up, you can discard any Salad card and then just get rid of that, assuming they don't have a Hugin up. And speaking of Floodgates, you know, most common one, Rivalry does absolutely nothing to this deck. You can combine that with Gozen, when you can definitely make plays with just fire monsters with Gozen, and do something such as dump a Foxy to potentially out it. Then you have the Linger Rebos too. It's just the first summon you can stick and then combo underneath it. So this deck is actually really resilient to anytime a Floodgate deck is meta. This deck is really resilient to that. This deck has a robust game plan going second as well, which is you jam all your extenders onto the board and you try to update access OTK, because this isn't the standard Salad build where you're playing a lot of trap cards and trying to regain resources a lot. So you just skip that plan immediately and you just try to kill your opponent turn 2. This is why I think this is also a very good deck for grinding this ladder tournament style event like DC Cup, where you want to get a lot of games in for basically DP or points. like you have a bunch of auto wins going first against very commonly played meta decks, and going second, you attempt to end the game early in one turn base. So games will not drag on. You're not going to be grinding for like 10 turn games like you would with a Runick, or sometimes even worse when you're playing a mirror match. You're not just sitting in front of your opponent doing nothing, just wasting time. You're getting your games in quickly, win or lose. You know, get out and then move on to the next one. So that's for the main deck. We got the standard 12 hand traps and cosmics for just the meta tech. And again, a smaller salad package because the end board is not going to be ending on a single salad monster. The ideal goal is HEATSOUL with either a Baguska and possibly a Linkariba to play around evenly, or HEATSOUL plus Transcode Talker, which Transcode Talker plus HEATSOUL linked together gives you 2 untargetable monsters, which is against Runick. That's also just happens to be really relevant because their spell traps, freezing curses, and flashing fire both target special summon monsters. So you just have these 2 out. They can't even target these to get rid of them. So your conflict will always be live, basically. The other cyber stuff. Flame Buffalo is the best normal summon in this deck. It triggers even Mirror J banishes it. And Microcoder is basically searches Signet Conflict. Although, important to note, going second, you can use Microcoder to search Signet Mining, which can get you another extender. And oftentimes you will add a Mirror, because Mirror is just a free special summon if you add it to your hand. So either one of these cards. And Foxy, as mentioned, is not... The effect to Excavate does not come up as much in this build because we're on a very low salad monster count, but it can still be used to out a Floodgate in a pinch. And for extra deck, since we're not running triple Bailings, triple Sunlight Wolf, there's a bit more room. We still run the double Bailing because they're link 1s, so you can they're link 1s to link off all your Cyberse monsters to get your plays going. There's only one Sunlight Wolf because, I mean, we don't even have any salad traps cards. So this is just return 1 to recur a Gazelle to your hand before you make HEATSOUL with it. Linkariba is really important. First of all, it's a straight up good card. Like, you can do entire combo lines underneath Linkariba protection. But also, HEATSOUL requires 2 different attribute Cyberse monsters, so oftentimes you'll have like a fire out with a Sunlight Wolf, and then you need to turn one of your salad monsters, which is also fire, into a dark attribute to make HEATSOUL with. Code Talker is the backup thing you make with Microcoder if you need to search, say, a Signet Mining to get your plays going, but you don't have other extenders. You need to basically have a link to Code Talker to go into to trigger Microcoder with. Update Jammers for an OTK. Baguska is an FTK. Marat Salio doesn't come up as much in this build because it's not many salad monsters. Oftentimes you'll have the salad monster you want in grave already, and then you don't want to make this, which locks you out of like non-fire monster effects, like which is mainly like Microcoder and Splash Mage and Transcode Talker. But this does make it so Gazelle by itself is a HEATSOUL plus Gazelle back to hand. Double Splash Mage, double Transcode, double access. A double Slash Mage comes up all the time. Even pure style builds run 2 Slash Mage because a lot of times if you get hand trapped too much or if your hand's really awkward, you need to go in the Slash Mage turn 1 in order to make a HEATSOUL. So you always want the second one in your extra deck as a follow-up. Transco Talker is similar in that regard. If you can't end on Baguska, say if you don't have Parallel Exceed and you don't have enough extenders, your backup goal is to Transco Talker plus HEATSOUL, which obviously if you do that, and they out their board, you do want a second Transco Talker later in turn 3 as a follow-up to kill your opponent. And double access is not necessary whatsoever. I'm just running it because you know, it's a flex, and this comes up most often when you go first. And in turn 3, in order to make sure you kill your opponent, you can make one. You have a bunch of leftover material. You have like a bunch of bodies on the field, so you can go into your first access code and force out whatever they have, see if they have anything, and you're usually gonna use it on your access code talker, and then you make the second one during the same turn after you get rid of all the resources of the first one, and then you kill them. But again, this is absolutely not necessary. This could be anything. This could be what I would recommend is Nightmare Phoenix, because this is an out to Tikaboo. Just be careful. You can't use Transco's effect the same turn you use Phoenix. But if you're gonna out a Tikaboo, that's perfectly fine. In like 2 ways too, because even if Nightmare Phoenix doesn't necessarily like out the Tikaboo, like you usually make it with like a leftover Baguska on field plus one of your Cyberse monsters. What this does is this clears your field of Cyberse monsters, so even if Phoenix gets negated or whatever, you still have a chance to out the floodgate with Foxy, since you're no longer Tikaboo locked with 2 Cyberse monsters. So this is what like an ideal duel against Runick should look like. You win the die roll and then you go mirror, or you link off the Cyberse into Phalanx. Our hand's kind of weird because we don't have any good side monsters. I want to keep the side mining for Microcoder, so we're gonna use Exceeds. And we could make Baguska, but I wouldn't be able to end on HEATSOUL plus Signet Conflict if we do, so we're gonna go the other route where we go Splash Mage to revive as Cyberse, go into Lingaribo, and then Transcode and Splash Mage will go into Transcode Talker to bring back the Splash Mage. And now we'll search for our Microcoder to make HEATSOUL with the Splash Mage, which will then let us add our Signet Conflict to hand and draw a card. So now we have 2 untargetable Code Talkers. So any Runick spells cannot deal with these 2 monsters, so they're gonna have to play into the Signet Conflict face down. Yeah, apparently our opponent doesn't read, and they try to Freezing Curse our Lingaribo because they can't target these 2. And I'm just gonna chain Maxi to the Runick summon. They're gonna tip into Fountain, not reading Signet Conflict. So yeah, you activate Conflict under Fountain, and the game is over. Basically, I bet they didn't know that they couldn't activate another one that turn because they have a Destruction in hand, and they opt to fire it after firing the Fountain, which is a mistake. But also doesn't really matter because since we had both Cyclone and Conflict, their Fountain was going to resolve anyways. And then we get a Cyber Sign jump scare. I mean, I don't think they could kill us anyways, but we have the Veiler, so yeah. Okay, so we got another matchup against Runick. This hand is... I have no words for this hand. So this is what we do when we don't auto-win going first and set up such Signet conflict and stuff and are targetable Kotaku monsters. So yeah, they're gonna sphere mode. So set 5 pass. We're gonna use one of our 3 Signet minings to get a Flame Buffalo, and we want to try to draw into stuff like maybe a Cosmic Cyclone. And I dumped the Foxy Engrave in the process. So the classic Chainlink 2 Bailings to block Buffalo from Ash. Your double Infirm, alright. Next they're gonna slumber my Bailings, okay. So now I'm gonna actually just go Microcoder plus Bailings to search like Signet conflict. That way we have a blanket out to any Runick spell they have. And dualities. Here's the thing I don't like about duality in Runick is like now you can't make Hugin, so you can't get your engine going if you don't like. It's kind of weird. Blind Runick destruction. Okay, hit the worst one. We're gonna activate the second Signet mining, discarding a Veiler to add a Gazelle. Summon Gazelle, and they're gonna negate it with Freezing Curses, which totally fine with. They don't have a Fountain up, and they never would have gotten the Fountain up because of our Signet conflict. So now we're gonna turn these two into a Transco Talker. Our opponent flips up Rivalry for absolutely no reason. This is an example of like Runick players not being very aware of the game state. Because you see all the non-Cybers monsters I've played, right? But what the flipping this up does is let us summon out Foxy, because now Foxy has there's a phase of spell on trap card, so I can discard the Sanctuary and just get a free body on the field. So like thanks. Now Transfield brings back the Kotaku. I'm gonna attack into their max. Alright. I respect it. Main phase 2, we're gonna do Kotaku, HEATSOUL. Draw a couple cards, and we have a Signet conflict face down, so to their 1 card. And so the game's pretty much done at this point. We're gonna set another one. We're just gonna summon Buffalo to see if they have anything, force out anything with an access code. They're gonna Judgment, but sure. Game on board already. Yeah. I don't know. I was feeling really toxic this day. I felt like BMing a Runick player for some reason. Sure. Yeah, we have the Infirm for Gary, so I was gonna make the second access code. I was gonna make the second access code for the game, but he surrendered before that. Okay, this game is gonna show this deck's strength and going second. So obviously we run 12 hand traps in our deck, and the fact that we open none and lost die roll is not really ideal. You would think that if you're like a mid-rangey deck that runs that many hand traps that you really struggle playing to an established board, which would be the case for most decks. But Salad and Cybers monsters in general, if you don't open the hand trap, that means you open like 5 extenders and all gas cards. So you're gonna see just how this deck can play into Disruption. So yeah, our opponent's gonna have 3 interruptions and 2 back row. Nice, Veiler always on time. I'm gonna draw Fade Circle, they let it go. Okay, I'm gonna Signet Mining, discard the Veiler. They negate that one. So, I mean, I guess. Next, we're gonna summon Mirror, go into a Bailings. Bailings triggered, see if I can bait anything. I don't, so Gazelle comes out. And they're gonna Grandmaster Gazelle instead of Baroning it, which is a mistake. Now we go into Splash Mage. Summon out, which can trigger our Exceeds this time. They're gonna Baron that one. And we're gonna Splash Mage targeting our Mirror, and they're gonna Call by, so we've gone through all 4 of their disruptions now. And now with the microcoder in hand, we go into Transcode Talker, add a Cyanide Conflict back to our hand. Transcode, bring back Splash Mage, and we go into Access Code. And now we get to clear their entire board. Banishing a Water, a Earth, a Fire, then attacking over the Chi Shell. And because we went through Microcoder, we got to search an Omni Negate to their 2 cards. They're gonna summon Ecclesia, we'll let it go, don't want to lose to a normal summon. Brings out Taya and I'll Conflict that. Now they have no single card in their deck that can out an Access Code. I'm hoping to draw into something, but I don't, so we're 200 off game, frustratingly. And fortunately, our opponent just draws a hand trap. And now we draw our monster and its game. So yeah, no hand traps playing into 4 disruptions against Swordsoul. We still clear a board and end on an interruption. I just wanted to show a quick replay against Despia, because Despia games where you win the die roll are just not close. For if you open the way to Baguska. So yeah, we're gonna discard Veiler, add Microcoder, Sanctuary to make a second Bailing, so we can put the first Bailing back in with Jack Jaguar and resummon that. Now we go into Splash Mage. Trigger Exceed now because Splash Mage Cybers locks us if we use his effect, so you gotta make the Baguska beforehand. Now bring back the Jack Jaguar. We go into HEATSOUL now to add, and now we'll add the Conflict. And the leftover Jack Jaguar we'll use to go into a Linkuriboh protection against Imperm and Evenly. So yeah, opponent's gonna top deck Ash, I would assume. That's why they held it for so long. So anyway, they're gonna Branded Fusion. It seems you probably shouldn't sign that Conflict of Branded Fusion when you have a Baguska up, just because protecting the Baguska is more important. There's one argument for if your opponent's on Shadow, they can dump like a Squamata or they can dump like Shadow monsters effects to try and pop the Baguska, but I mean, you could probably sign a Conflict those anyways, so yeah, generally it's better off to save your Conflict, but we'll show that it doesn't really matter because they don't have the Alpha Baguska anyways. And so now they're just playing stuff out their hand, trying to live until the next turn. End phase, we've Cosmic and Infirm. As you can see, that's where the Linkuriboh comes in, because Linkuriboh will protect your Baguska from stuff like Infirm, and Baguska protects the Linkuriboh from battle if they're not on a Link deck. Yeah, then now we're just gonna end the game. No need to do anything too fancy, just go into Access Code. Yeah. The only out I think Despia has to Baguska plus Cyanide Conflict at standard Despia deck is Super Poly with Fallen of Albaz, which is like a 2 of and usually a 2 of. So yeah, and they waste their normal summon on that, so they have to be able to play afterwards. Yeah, it's basically a blowout if you go first against Despia. Okay, this is a replay against a non-meta deck, but we'll just show. I wanted to show a combo line with lets you update access code OTK while having targeting protection. So yeah, our opponent's playing Lady Debug, the card that's been phased out of most salad builds since 2020. Yeah. So they're just gonna end on, I believe, 1 interruption, 1 salad trap through all this. I'm sure they could have done something better, but I wasn't really paying attention to to their plays at the time. So yeah, we'll normal summon Jack Jaguar, going to Linkuriboh, and turns off their Salamangreat rage. Now we can do our entire combo, basically uninterrupted. Dump Spinny, bring back the Spinny, go into an update jammer, and trigger our Parallel Exceed. And this is basically a line where if you have access to 4 different bodies, you can make a untargetable, you can co-link transcode and access code so that you play around Veiler too. And if they Veiler at any time beforehand, they're just dead because you have too many bodies on the field. So yeah, we'll go into Slash Mage, bring back whatever. Go into the Bailings just to add our Sanctuary because we never did that at the start of our play. And now Splash Mage and Bailings will go into Transcode. And Transcode will bring back our Splash Mage. And then Splash Mage and Update Jam will go into a co-linked access code with the Transcode Talker. And what that also does is it puts a extra water attribute engraved for us. So we get an extra pop with access code Talker. Now we go into battle and we just Linger Rebuild their rage. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy hand. No hand traps, but we had 4 bodies plus we had 5 bodies, so we could do an entire combo line under Linger Rebuild that protects from that with targeting protection. So anyway, good luck everyone in the DC Cup event. It's gonna stage 2 is gonna start in a few hours after this video gets uploaded. So God help us all. Let's hope they do something interesting with the ban list. You know, make sure to tell them your just love for floodgates in the survey.